So, welcome to Between Three Witches, where we talk about witchcraft in plain sight. It's a podcast about everyday magic, lived honestly. And it's hosted by three witches with different paths and different levels of experience, who all have a shared respect for the craft as it is actually practiced. In today's episode, we are going to ask, what does it mean to be a witch in plain sight? Before we get into that, let's introduce ourselves. Vikkie, why don't you go first?
Hey, I'm Vikkie. Online, I'm the Wheelie Green Witch. You'll find me on TikTok and Instagram. I've been practicing witchcraft and folkcraft since I was a small child. And it wasn't called that at the time, particularly, it was just how my family lived. We used plants, looked at weather, seasons, small workings woven into the ordinary life, all that type of stuff. My craft now is still very, very practical, land-based, nature-based, lots of herbs and trees, animals, weather, and whatever the season is doing. I happen to be in a wheelchair, which is why I'm called the Wheelie Green Witch. So my practice has got to be sustainable rather than draining, and it keeps my practice honest.
Hello, I am the anonymous witch, but you can all call me Anon. So as you can probably tell, I'm Welsh and I'm 45. I too, like Vikkie, have been practicing in my practice since I can remember. I have always been connected to the spirit of the land, the moon, the stars, and I have always been enchanted by nature, and I never want that to stop. Why am I called the Anonymous Witch? Well, if you stick around, I'll tell you now.
Thank you both for sharing a little bit about you. My name's Gayle. I am the witch next door. I'm on all the social media platforms, which I started around 12 months ago. We can talk about that another time, but I've also been practicing a lot shorter amount of time than you two. So we'll bring a bit of a different dynamic to our witchcraft practice because you guys have got lots and lots of years of experience, whereas I'm much newer. And I feel like every day is an education day. But that's what this podcast is about, is helping all people, all witches from different walks of life and different levels of experience to really hone in on their practice. So let's talk a bit about today's episode and what it means to be a witch in plain sight. It's not hidden, it's not secret, but it's also not performative. So we're navigating workplaces and families, communities, the land, and often holding our practice carefully but consciously. So being in plain sight isn't about visibility, it's about integrity. So it's important to say what this episode is not about. We are not giving you advice on about coming out as a witch. We're not talking about social media visibility, aesthetics, or building a public platform. And we're not here to tell anybody about what the right level of openness is either. So from here, we're all going to share about what it looks like about being a witch in plain sight and how it folds into our own lives and our own practices. So, Vikkie, how do you see being a witch in plain sight in your daily practice?
So yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because for me, a witch in plain sight isn't really about announcing anything. It's not about shrinking, but my neighbours don't necessarily have a full idea of my practice. That's just a personal thing to me. I'm not going to go around jumping around with a big hat on outside. However, I don't hide it either. They
Do
just
you
see.
ever talk to them? Sorry.
Yeah, go for
Sorry,
it.
you
Go
was in
for
the
it.
flow. No.
No, you just stopped my flow. Don't worry.
Right. But I was going to say, do you ever talk to your neighbours about it, or do you just keep it completely hidden?
Nobody's really asked me. Where I used to live, they absolutely openly.
How about you, Anon? Do you keep it private as well?
Yes, I do, primarily in my working professional capacity, which I'll come on to later. Within my immediate, private, intimate life, everybody is very much aware. I have never been able, if I'm honest with you, to truly, quote unquote, hide what my beliefs are. So to me, having that visibility to be seen is incredibly important.
Yeah, sorry, Vic, I did interrupt your flow, but yeah, I was really curious to know
No.
whether you speak to your neighbours about it or whether you don't. But I guess it sounds like it's a bit of both.
I think it's because we moved. This is how come I ended up on TikTok. We actually moved not that long ago and had to redo the garden. It was a complete and utter nightmare. So my kids had left home. We we were doing the garden. We were updating the kids on TikTok. This is what the garden is looking like. And then people started seeing it and then asking questions. And then I was sort of saying, oh, you can use this herb for this, because I was letting the kids know. Next thing I know, I'm on Witch Talk. That's how all that happened. So I don't hide it. It's an interesting one. Where I used to live in the old place, yeah, we'd have neighbours knock on the door and say, can you give us a hand? Do you know about this, that, and the other? My friends all know, family all know. Generally, if somebody's got a sore throat or they've got a problem, they'll come to me. That's how that works. So yes, it's plain sight. I don't go around announcing it. People just kind of pick up on it.
So what about you then, Anon? You did mention a little bit about having to keep it private at work. How has that transpired? What does that look like for you?
Yeah, so I work in an environment that I have done since 2000, and I'd like to think if I've been employed that long, I'm pretty good at what I do. All my life, I have been very open and honest about who I am as a person, but also, as we know, when we go into our professional working capacity, we also have our working hat on. And as far as I'm aware, I'm 45. I'm a Welsh lady. I have lived within the British Isles all my life. And very recently, I was genuinely asked, very formally, in my workplace, number one, are you a witch? Number two, I have to be very careful what I say here, but have you done something? And they were going down the line of me doing something that would be perceived as very negative. And I really did worry about my job security. I worried about my professional integrity. I have never, ever been asked about my beliefs in any way, shape, or form throughout my whole career. But the learning curve from it is that, as much as I had previously thought it's safe to be a witch in the UK, within the British Isles, I can absolutely hold my head up high and walk knowing that I am a witch with pride and with honour. However, I left work that day. I'm still employed within the same place, but I left work that day shocked, angry, and scared. And I do not know of anybody else that I work with that has a variety of different beliefs where any one of them has been called in formally and to be asked, are you this, that, or the other? And to me, it was discrimination. But what I learned from that is that with regards to visibility, I can't hide who I am. We have never been hidden. We have been visible all along. If I am asked informally, which I have been by colleagues since, I have been approached with genuine curiosity. I have been asked out of kindness, with the occasional question of, can you read my palm though? Are you able to do the tarot cards for me, please? And that, I find all that fine. You know, I think most of us, when we do meet up with people and they're aware that we're spiritual, whether that we're a witch, etc., those questions we might be accustomed to. But for me, I have to be aware of my professional safety. I don't discuss my beliefs fully in work, but if I was asked informally, you know, in general chit chat, I am happy to discuss, but I certainly would not go into full detail.
And it's wild, isn't it? Because before we started this podcast, I was looking at this question. I thought, I don't hide anything. So just a quick one for me. I think I'm pretty open and honest, and I've never really take in consideration what people think or feel, and that goes for every part of my life, because I'm also a gay woman, a lesbian, and I've been with my wife for 19 years. So I always stand in my power when it comes to owning who I am, what I do, what I believe. But then I started to sit with this question. I realized that actually I hadn't spoken to anybody in my workplace about it. And I couldn't quite understand whether it was fear based, whether I just wanted to keep it personal to myself. But it now transpires I've been on social media for 12 months and it's kind of gone a bit crazy recently. They've all found it. Well, I say they found it. I can kind of come out to them, come out the broom closet, as they say, to all of my very senior members of staff as well. So these are all people that I report into and they sit on the board. But again, I was quite happy to maybe take the consequences of whatever that meant, because I guess I didn't really think there were consequences. But you're right, Anon, like there are still pockets of society where there are consequences for being who you want to be. And in the UK, we take that for granted. But your story is very specifically quite recent as well, where you've had to go undercover. Hence, this is part of the podcast as well. You're an amazing witch, but have to do it under the guise of anonymity. But have you ever had that, Vikkie, like work-wise? I know we talked about your neighbours and things.
Yeah, work-wise is a bit... so work-wise, I work for myself and I'm a fine artist. I'm a professional fine artist. So I'm expected to be a little bit quirky. And so therefore I get away with it a little bit. I get more interest. People tend to say, oh, what's that about? Or generally sort of, oh, do you do the gardening thing? I get a lot of questions about some things that are related to what they'll see on social media, which I wouldn't say is what I would practice as my craft on a day-to-day basis, because my craft is just a day-to-day thing. And they seem to be a little bit more, they seem to be a little bit more sort of like almost disappointed that it's not that it's not all great big fires and sparks and hexing and all that type of stuff that you see on social media. That actually my life is really quite quiet. I'm a visual person. I work visually, I live visually, and I work hands-on, and that's all the way through my life. So not really. I think I probably had more issues with being in a wheelchair, which has been an interesting thing combined with it. Or how does that work because you're on wheels? Well, it works the same way as before I was on wheels. It's just I roll this time. It's one of those things. But no, I've not really had any problems work-wise. I'm expected to be quirky.
It is crazy, though, that, I mean, it's a whole other podcast, I think, this one, but there's so many beliefs out there that they think we're there, toil and trouble around our cauldron every day long. I mean, I really wish I was. I wish I had the time and the capacity to be all that with my pointy hat on. But that's only for special occasions. But jokes aside, we don't do these big rituals every day. And people do think that. So how for you then, Vic? You talked about social media. So do you feel like you're still able to be fully yourself on social media? Do you put it all out there? Do you keep some of it back? And then the reason why as well.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? So I tend to cater more for beginner witchcraft, people who are looking into it, the people who've steered away from the big, more Hollywood style of witchcraft on TikTok as such.
Yeah.
Because the way that I was brought up was it's actually quite a quiet practice. It's quite a steady practice. It's not all kaboom and everything else. So that's who I sort of cater for. It's I want to know about this, but I'm actually quite scared about it. So yes, I am completely myself on TikTok and on social media and on the platforms. However, there is quite a lot of practice that I keep to myself because that is actually just personal.
Yeah.
It's one of those things. It is just a personal thing. That isn't because I wouldn't talk about that subject. But if I'm doing a week-long ritual for something, that is for me. That isn't for social media.
But that's a really important message, actually, for any beginner witches. Like keeping some of that back is actually really good protection. This isn't about, and being in plain sight isn't about just the idea that magic has to be seen to be real, right? It's also about the fact that magic is part of who we are and how we move every day, and the language we use and the way we treat other people, and all of the things that encompasses, not just the what you see out there all the time. So I think it's really important. You've probably got so embedded in your practice that you forget that actually is part of your protection as well, to keep some of that to your personal self.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of my practice I don't realize is in essence practice. And I'm sure that Anon is exactly the same.
I think what I have found over an X amount of time, right, since this happened, is that I started to feel unwell, that I couldn't be authentically me, because I am me to my family, to my loved ones. I try and be as open and honest as possible, but I felt that I had to hide so much of my true me. I had to keep it back. And I genuinely feel it was making me feel unwell. And I think that's one of the whole reasons why I decided to go with the name of the Anonymous Witch, where my face is not public. You know, I am not doing this for the aesthetics, as you can see it, but I am here to be me, to be as truthful as possible. My practice for me is very much a day-to-day practice. It's, you know, I've often thought about it, you know, what is my practice to me? I am my practice, and my practice is me. It meanders with how I am. You know, I listen to my body first. If I'm tired, I rest. If I feel more energetic one day, perhaps I might plan to do more. But I have intention with everything I do. You know, I wake up every morning and I genuinely have gratitude for who I am, who my family are, my friends and my loved ones in my life. And I ensure that I take time every day to do that and to honour the spirits around me and my ancestors. And yes, you know, there is pathways to what I do that are private to me. And I do think that's important as well, as also showing or explaining that everybody's practice is different. Mine doesn't look like yours, Gayle, nor does Vikkie's look like mine. And that's the most important message, that each and every one of us are unique, are individual. Yes, read. Yes, listen to as many podcasts as possible. Yes, go on social media. But ultimately, your practice is you.
Yeah, it's really, and do you know what I do? I mean, as you two both know, but the listeners may not, I do sort of one-to-one coaching, and it was interesting. I've had 2 clients this week, and both of them have got such fear around getting it wrong that they've held back. There's so much fear, like, and I think it goes back to that point you made, Vikkie, about the Hollywood social media witches. And this isn't disparaging to anybody, but there's a lot of fluff and gumph out there that kind of portrays witches in a certain type of way. But then people new coming into it are going, well, what does that mean? What happens if I get it wrong? What about if I do this? Well, actually, to your point, Anon, you can't get it wrong. It's part of who you are. You just need to figure out how it looks like for you in an everyday setting. But really interestingly, I know you've had a very specific experience at work, Anon. But this will potentially resonate with people out there on what that looks like for them, and whether it brings more fear about coming out in the open. And I'm not in any position to say what people should or shouldn't do. For me, when I started social media, I guess I didn't necessarily take into consideration the parts of me that I needed to keep private. So I started sharing an awful lot because it's part of the social media chain as well, and people want to know about what you're doing, and you start giving more and more. But that did kind of culminate, I guess, at the back end of last year for me going, I've given too much. So I'm now reevaluating about how I position myself on social media, and not in a like strategic way, just in a safety and protection way. Because the more you let out, the more vulnerable you become, and your energy can get sapped by that as well, and by others. And I went into 2 different things there, but I think it's important to say, like, there is a safety net in keeping some of that reserved just for us. So we don't need to be telling everybody all the time, but it's also a really empowering thing to reclaim that word witch. For me, I think it's really important to reclaim that word. And it's not necessarily about everybody knowing that I'm a witch and that's what it is. It's about, that's an empowerment tool for me to say, this is how I'm reclaiming who I am, what the universe means for me, what my land practice means for me, and how I'm going to show up in the world. But it does look different to everybody. So Vikkie, when did you call yourself a witch, or do you think you've always called yourself a witch?
Oh, interesting question. I think other people called me a witch at a very young age before I called myself a witch, including friends, and it kind of went along. And it was really when I read through the histories, the witchcraft history as such, the folk practice histories, what happened to those people. And I took it on for sovereignty. I took it on for my sovereignty, and I took on the name witch. Actually, I'm going to uphold those people who suffered for just healing, for having their own beliefs, for not being able to talk openly, or I don't know, they couldn't heal somebody in the local village, and therefore there was a problem with it, and they lost their lives over it, and they were tortured over it. I'm not going to get too deep about that. So for me, I'm carrying that forward for my ancestors in essence, and for the past. I'm very lucky. I know that everybody can't call themselves a witch, not openly, even in this country, as Anon has already said. But hopefully, within my personal environment, I'm safe enough to do that. So if I'm known as a witch, and I'm okay being as a witch, if somebody wants to know a little bit more about it, whether that is just planting a herb, then come and have a chat. It's not scary. You don't have to call yourself a witch, because a lot of what I do is actually just old traditional folk practice.
Yeah. What does it look like for you? Social media, being visible outside. Is that something that you would look to embed within your practice, or are you going to steer away from it? I mean, obviously we're talking on a podcast, and you are the anonymous witch, but do you feel it's important as part of your practice to share it as well?
Oh, 100%. 100%. I mean, I think we don't have to look that far back to where any village or any town would always know of a man or a woman or a person that was known to be a quote unquote witch, or a healer, or someone who read the cards, the tea leaves, etc. And as I said before, we were always visible, but it was under the kind of cloak of the evening that people would access these individuals for assistance, for support, for guidance, for help. And I guess that's part of my nature. I think each and every one of us, it is important to be heard. It is important to stand in your reality and be 100% comfortable about who you are, especially when it comes to your beliefs. Even though I am the anonymous witch, you'll never see my face. I am doing this as a way to show that you can practice your beliefs without actually showing it to the world. You don't have to have the quote unquote aesthetics. You don't have to have the tools. You don't have to have the altar. Being a witch is part of your core. It is part of your essence. It is who you are. And, for me, I'm doing this as part of my belief, my pathway. And it's a big step, actually, for me, to be on social media. But the fact that I am anonymous is for my professional security.
But it does lean back, doesn't it, into why witches have had to stay secret for so many decades, so many centuries, and not lean into it. So I think it's a really important message. So is there anything else then that we think is important to touch upon when we're talking about being a witch in plain sight?
I think it's interesting, isn't it? Because a lot of it is actually deconstructing the idea that magic must be seen to be real. Because so much of what we do isn't even seen. And yet it's such an important part of our lives, and it makes most impact, I would say. I think the small things, the daily things, the things you just naturally do, all those little routines and rituals that everybody has, whether you're a witch or not, everyone has their little routine. And when it becomes embedded in your life, it becomes magic.
That's so important. That's so important, because I'm sure you get asked this question on social media. I get asked it all of the time. It's like, how do I start my practice? And I think people think that you have to sit at an altar and light a candle every day and I mean, you can do that, but actually your practice begins with just noticing. Just noticing
Absolutely.
what's going on around the world. That is, it's around you when you're out walking, when you're at home, the way your body feels, like Anon said, like first and foremost, how do I feel today? Those are the things that are really key to being a magical witchcraft practitioner, however you want to label it. There isn't all of this big aesthetic need, and like you say, the deconstruction of what it actually looks like to be a witch. I think for me, that's the fundamental, the art of noticing. Something I've been saying more and more lately.
Yeah, and it's the whole of my January TikTok at the moment is about listening, grounding, slowing down. It's winter. That's what nature is doing. Well, in the Northern Hemisphere. In the Northern Hemisphere, everything is slowing down. And actually, we're natural beings, and we're part of that whole thing. And it's okay to slow down. It doesn't have to be go, go, go. And unfortunately, social media is a roller coaster. It's a hamster wheel. It's got to keep producing, got to keep producing, got to keep producing. Now, obviously, you and I are both producing items on social media. Hopefully, I think, and I've noticed there's a lot of people who are established within their craft, whatever that craft looks like, because there's no right or wrong. There isn't. We all practice very, very differently. But a lot of established people are saying, January, we're in the Northern Hemisphere, slow down. You can slow down. You don't need to go and start jogging 15 miles a day. And actually, do you know what? Sometimes it's just about getting your hands in the dirt and just connecting with nature. And I'm sure that Anon agrees as well.
Yeah, I think for me, belief in self has always been part of my practice. I think when I was younger, I remember having this, I was just so enchanted by nature. I was enthralled by the moon and the stars, and I'd look up and gaze and talk to them like they could literally genuinely hear every word, and for me, my core is to continually strive to connect to that inner child where magic was everywhere, where my full belief was everywhere. And yes, I read, yes, I do my research, I follow some amazing practitioners, amazing on social media. But ultimately, when I'm watching them or when I read the research, for me, it's a blueprint. It's not necessarily something I have to follow word to word. It is a guide. And I think that is incredibly important to anybody new to the pathway. And I wish somebody had told me that when I was younger, that yes, read, gain the knowledge, but ultimately trust your own knowing, trust your own intuition, what feels right and what doesn't. And everything aside, if you truly don't have belief in you, if you go into any form of ritual or spell, fully believing this isn't going to work, this is rubbish, then it won't. And spells will not happen instantaneously. It'll take time. And again, patience is part of this pathway for a lot of us. But yeah, believe in that inner magic. Believe in you. Believe in the source within. Believe within your own power.
Yeah, it's a really good point, actually. And that you do follow some great creators, because obviously you're following me and Vikkie. So why wouldn't, I mean, it's a big statement.
Clearly.
But jokes aside, the reality is we should be taking everybody says take what resonates, leave what doesn't, and it feels a bit arbitrary now because it's one of those sayings, isn't it? Oh, just leave. But what the core piece of that is like just take what does work for you. And when I speak to anybody that I work with, and in a spiritual or witchcraft practice, I'm like, look, I'm not always right. I mean, I'd love to be, oh my God, but I'm not. And because I'm not always right to you, I'm always right to me because that's how I practice. But you have to understand whatever I say, sometimes adapt it. And you're right, I follow some amazing creators on social media, but I cannot find one that I resonate with 100%. There's always something that I would question or look at a bit differently or adapt to the way that I'm working, and that's okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm going to jump in here, but on that note, that is a really important thing, isn't it? And we're reiterating it again. You're going to start off, if you're new, you're probably going to start off quite slowly. There is no real right or wrong way. It's that, okay, if you mess up something, well, okay, it's a learning experience. You're going to work it out. You're not necessarily going to resonate with every single person. And that's what I find difficult about social platforms and on the platforms. I love the platforms. I love my audience, and I'll give everything my 100% full. This is who I am, and I can show you something that you might be able to take away with you. Give it a go. If you don't like it, that's absolutely fine. However, it's got to be done this way, and you're wrong if you do it this way. And I mean, for instance, I don't generally work with crystals.
What?
Yeah, I don't.
How can you not?
And I don't particularly like mugwort. I mean, I do have some crystals around because they've been gifted to me. I'm not a fan of mugwort.
How are we even friends?
I know.
Mugwort is one of my favourite plant allies. I can't believe this. Look at my arms, I'm crossed.
I know, right? But for me, wormwood works better, and I prefer rue over sage, So these things are okay. And unless you try them, you're not going to know.
That's absolutely true. And jokes aside, when it comes to plant magic, and we will save that for another podcast, but there are relationships that you can build with each of those plants. And it sounds like you've built those relationships and understand fully what works for you and what doesn't. But yeah, like I said, that is a whole other podcast in itself.
It is.
Okay, so lots of useful information there. Hopefully you've really enjoyed this podcast talking about witchcraft in plain sight. What we want to do as part of our podcast is offer you the chance to ask lots of questions. So we will do a segment called Come Sit With Us where we answer your questions. So please drop them in the show notes or drop us a message on social media because we would love to answer any questions you've got. Close out today's episode. Tell me, Vikkie, what is the one thing that scares you about witchcraft?
The one thing, okay. Not scared of the craft at all. Itself, I'm so used to working with it. I would have to say people on social platforms.
Ooh.
And the way that it's put across. That's what I would have to say.
Yeah, that's a good one. I am most scared of it. I'm not scared of anything in witchcraft either. There are some things that give me the heebie-jeebies, but we could talk about that all day. But I think the biggest thing I'm scared of in witchcraft is forgetting to continue learning, because sometimes I can get so comfortable and go, this is where I'm at, but actually that's not how it works. Like, you have to keep learning. So I'm scared that I will lose myself sometimes, so I have to keep myself in check. And
That's a good one.
I don't know if I've been a bit soft around the edges with that one, rather than going, no, I'm scared of demons, because that seems obvious. Sorry, Anon, have I just ruined what you're scared of? You can't be scared of demons.
Of course I'm not. They're my friends, mate. Half of them are my neighbours, but that's another podcast in itself. No, very much like you both, genuinely, hand on heart, I am not scared of anything where it is connected to my beliefs, because they're mine. And it is up to me what I pour my energy into. It's up to me what I give energy to or not. I think what scares me, even in today, is still that stigma where it comes to people that haven't got the information about different beliefs. I'm not talking about witchcraft in its entirety or spiritualism, etc. I'm just talking about the stigma connected to anybody's belief system. And I hope one day we can get to a point where everybody is just accepted for who they are and not necessarily about what their belief stroke religion is.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Good point. So, thank you for listening to Between Three Witches, Witches in Plain Sight. If this episode resonated with you, you're welcome to sit with it, share it, or simply unfold it at your own time. I am Gayle, the Witch Next Door. You can find me on all social media platforms: TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, Patreon. I'm all over the place. And Vikkie, you are on TikTok and Instagram. I know you've got some big things coming up this year, so we will announce them as they go live. And Anonymous Witch is still the Anonymous Witch, but I believe you are going to start some social media platforms. So hopefully you will see her around soon. So until next time, may your practice meet you exactly where you are.